A millionaire was dining at the most exclusive restaurant in Madrid when a homeless man with a baby in his arms knelt in front of her table. "Can I have your leftovers, ma'am?" he whispered with a broken voice. But when she looked into the eyes of that barely 3-month-old baby, she saw something that chilled her blood. Those eyes she had seen before, what they discovered afterward will forever change our faith in humanity. One December night in Madrid, rain was beating against the windows of the capital's most exclusive restaurant. The royal palace gleamed like a diamond while Madrid's elite dined, ignoring the drama that was about to unfold. Valentina Ruiz, 34 years old, heiress to an €800 million pharmaceutical empire, mechanically cut white truffle over her risotto. Her life was perfect on paper. Villas in Marbella, yachts in the Mediterranean, exclusive parties. But inside, emptiness had been devouring her for 5 years. The doctors had been clear after chemotherapy. "Mrs. Ruiz, pregnancy will be impossible." She had lost the only child she could have ever had, Miguel, dead at 3 years old from leukemia. Every child she saw on the street was a stab to her heart that still bled. That night, while sipping the 98 Rioja, the restaurant door opened with a creak. A bearded man in worn clothes entered, trembling from Madrid's cold. In his arms he carried a small bundle wrapped in tattered blankets. The maitre d' approached immediately with a dismissive gesture. "Sir, you cannot enter here." "Please," whispered the man with a desperate voice. "I just need milk for my son." Valentina looked up, and time stopped in Madrid's most expensive restaurant. All the elegant clients' eyes fixed on that uncomfortable scene. The man was named Marcos Blanco. He was 38 years old, and his story was written in every pain wrinkle on his face. Once he had been a brilliant engineer, but the economic crisis had run him over like a tsunami. Unpaid mortgage, foreclosed house, wife dead in childbirth 3 months ago. Now he lived on Madrid streets with little Lucas, his only treasure in a world that had become hostile. "Can I have your leftovers, ma'am?" asked Marcos, kneeling in front of Valentina's table. His voice was broken by shame, but love for his son was stronger than any pride. Valentina looked at little Lucas, and her world crumbled like a house of cards. Those crystalline blue eyes, those brown curls, that small upturned nose. It was like seeing the ghost of Miguel, her dead son, looking at her from a stranger's arms. "How long have you not eaten?" asked Valentina with a trembling voice. 3 days. Lucas drank his last bottle this morning. The restaurant manager approached with a threatening gesture. "Mrs. Ruiz, shall I call security?" Valentina stood up with a determination that surprised even herself. "No, bring us a private dining room immediately." The clients murmured, scandalized, but she no longer cared what Madrid's high society thought. She was about to make the most important decision of her life. In the reserved room, illuminated only by candles that projected dancing shadows, Valentina watched hypnotized as Marcos fed little Lucas. The baby sucked the bottle desperately, as if he knew each drop might be the last. "What's your son's name?" asked Valentina with a sweet voice. "Lucas, like my father." "He's beautiful. He looks like someone I knew," she whispered, feeling a knot in her throat. Marcos looked up suspiciously. "Ma'am, I don't want your compassion. I just want my son not to die of hunger." "Tell me your story," asked Valentina with a curiosity that consumed her. With a voice broken by pain, Marcos recounted his fall from heaven to hell, the engineering degree, the job at a multinational, deep love with Sarah. "We had planned everything perfectly. The house in the suburbs, the spring wedding, Lucas who was supposed to arrive in August." Tears furrowed his dirty face as he continued. "But the crisis came like an earthquake. Fired, house foreclosed. Sarah died giving birth to Lucas from complications we couldn't afford." Valentina felt as if daggers were being driven into her chest. "And where do you live now?" "In a shack under the Segovia Bridge. Lucas is always cold, always hungry. I don't know what to do anymore." The pain in Marcos's voice was so real, so familiar, that Valentina saw herself reflected in him. "Why didn't you ask social services for help?" "I did," Marcos responded bitterly. They want to take Lucas from me. They say I'm not capable of raising him in my situation. And what will you do? Marcos pressed his son against his chest with protective fierceness. I'll die before letting him go. He's all I have left of Sarah. In that moment, Valentina saw in Marcos the reflection of her own pain, that of a parent willing to do anything for their child. What would you say if I offered you a job? Marcos looked at her as if she had lost her mind. A job? For me? I own Ruiz Pharmaceuticals. We need an engineer for our research and development department. Ma'am, I haven't worked in 2 years. I'm a vagrant, a social pariah. Valentina approached the window, watching the rain fall over Madrid. You're a father who would do anything for his son. That's all that interests me. Marcos shook his head incredulously. I don't accept charity. I have my pride. It's not charity. It's justice. Valentina's voice broke as she confessed her most painful secret. 5 years ago, I lost my son Miguel to leukemia. He was 3 years old. Her words floated in the air like broken glass. Every day I wonder why God took away the only thing I truly loved in this world. I'm very sorry, murmured Marcos, moved. Valentina turned toward him, with eyes bright with tears. Tonight I understood. Miguel didn't die to punish me. He died to guide me to you. She approached Marcos and Lucas. Your son has Miguel's same eyes, the same innocent smile, the same tender way of moving his little hands. Ma'am, let me help you. Let me give Lucas what I couldn't give Miguel. A life full of love and opportunities. Marcos hugged his son, fighting back tears. And if it doesn't work, if I disappoint your expectations, then I'll have done the right thing anyway. But what neither of them knew was that someone was spying on them from the half-open door. Someone who had a lot to lose if Marcos became important in Valentina's life. Ricardo Ruiz, Valentina's younger brother. He had built his entire existence on one hope, inheriting the family empire. For years he had patiently waited for his sister to die without descendants, knowing he would be the sole heir. When he saw Valentina leave the restaurant with Marcos and the baby, he felt as if the ground had been ripped from under his feet. Damn, he hissed from his table, gripping his champagne glass until it nearly broke. What is that idiot doing? The next day, Ricardo burst into Valentina's office like a storm of contained fury. You've gone completely crazy. You've hired a filthy vagrant. Valentina didn't even look up from her documents. I've hired a qualified engineer. Valentina, let's speak clearly once and for all. Ricardo leaned over the desk. You and I know you can't have children. When you die, this entire empire will pass to me. Maybe things will change, she responded coldly. Ricardo slammed both fists on the desk. What does that mean? It means I'm thinking of adopting Lucas. Ricardo's world collapsed like a demolished building. You can't. You're single. You have health problems. I'm rich, influential, and I have contacts. I can do anything. Ricardo left the office fuming, but his mind was already scheming a sinister plan. That same night he called his private detective. Find everything possible about Marcos Blanco. He must be guilty of something. All poor people are. And if he's clean? Ricardo's smile was pure distilled poison. Then we'll fabricate something. Money can buy any truth. 3 weeks later, Marcos's life had undergone a transformation that seemed taken from a fairy tale. Valentina had provided him with an elegant apartment in central Madrid, new brand-name clothes, and above all, something he had lost long ago: dignity. At work, Marcos proved every day that his talent hadn't been destroyed by circumstances. Your project for the new painkiller is absolutely brilliant, Valentina told him during an executive meeting. It could completely revolutionize the pharmaceutical market. Marcos blushed like a teenager. I always dreamed of working on something that would really help people who suffer. Like Lucas helped you not give up when everything seemed lost. Exactly. He's my reason to live, my strength to keep going. Every night Valentina visited Marcos and Lucas's apartment as if it were a sacred ritual. She watched them play together and felt her heart fill with a warmth she had believed lost forever. "Can I hold him for a while?" she asked one night, looking at Lucas with eyes hungry for maternal love. Marcos handed her the child without hesitation, and Valentina began to sing him a lullaby she used to sing to Miguel. Lucas fell asleep immediately in her arms as if he had instinctively recognized a mother's unconditional love. "Have you ever thought about remarrying?" asked Valentina with apparent casualness. "Who would want a man like me, a widower without a euro, with a child to feed?" "You might be very surprised," she whispered with a mysterious smile. That night Marcos realized that what he felt for Valentina was no longer just gratitude, it was something much deeper, purer, more terrifying. But the next day, a phone call would destroy their newborn happiness like a meteorite destroys glass. The phone rang at 8 in the morning with the insistence of a fire alarm. "Marcos Blanco?" The voice was cold, official, threatening. "Yes, that's me." "Inspector Fernandez, Madrid Police. You must present yourself immediately at the station." Marcos's world began to wobble. "Why? What have I done?" "The accusation is very serious. Child abandonment and child abuse." "What?" Marcos felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "But that's completely impossible. Someone has filed a formal complaint alleging that you keep the minor in inhumane conditions." "Who? Who has made that disgusting complaint?" "A citizen who prefers to remain anonymous for security reasons." When Valentina arrived running to the police station, she found Marcos in tears. "I don't understand anything," he sobbed like a lost child. "Lucas is perfect. He eats well, sleeps well. He's happy with me." "I know perfectly well," whispered Valentina, hugging him tightly. "I know you're the most wonderful father in the world." But Inspector Fernandez was inflexible as a rock. "Mrs. Ruiz, I understand you're emotionally involved, but the law is clear. The minor will go to foster care until the investigation is resolved." "You can't take my son," screamed Marcos desperately. "He's all I have in this world." "Can I take temporary custody?" proposed Valentina desperately. "I have all the necessary economic and social qualifications." "I'm very sorry, ma'am. The law doesn't allow exceptions." When social workers took Lucas away, the baby's heartbreaking cry broke everyone present's hearts. Marcos collapsed on the floor like a broken doll. "Lucas, Lucas, Daddy is here." Valentina helped him up, feeling her own heart shatter. "We'll bring him back to you, I swear by Miguel's memory." But at that moment, she didn't know that the real culprit was celebrating in his luxury office. Ricardo Ruiz smiled sinisterly while drinking Dom Perignon champagne. "Checkmate, dear little sister." Valentina immediately hired Madrid's best lawyer, but the fabricated evidence against Marcos seemed like an impossible wall to tear down. Photos of the crying child, testimonies from anonymous neighbors, medical reports that had clearly been falsified. "Someone with a lot of money and power has orchestrated this conspiracy," analyzed lawyer Moreno, "but finding solid evidence will be extremely difficult." "Ricardo," whispered Valentina with icy certainty. "It was my brother, Ricardo." That night, Valentina became a private detective and stationed herself outside her brother's office building. At 11 p.m. she saw Ricardo leave stealthily with a bulging envelope full of bills. She followed him through Madrid's dark streets to a seedy bar on the outskirts. "Excellent work, Fernandez," she heard Ricardo say as he greeted a suspicious-looking man. "The photographs are perfectly convincing. No one will doubt that child is being mistreated, and I've paid all the false witnesses generously. They'll say exactly what we need them to say." Valentina recorded every word with her phone, feeling rage boil in her veins. The next day she burst into Ricardo's office accompanied by the civil guard. "Ricardo Ruiz, you are under arrest for slander, corruption, document forgery, and conspiracy," announced the sergeant. Ricardo paled like a corpse. "Valentina, wait. Can we talk about this civilly? You've destroyed an innocent man's life and separated a father from his son for pure money. You're a soulless monster." "It was just business. Lucas isn't really your son." Valentina looked at him with absolute contempt. You're right. He's not my biological son, but he will be legally while they took Adan. Ricardo away in handcuffs, Valentina ran desperately to the foster home. Lucas was crying inconsolably. He had lost weight. He wasn't sleeping, rejecting all food. My little one, whispered Valentina, taking him in her arms. Daddy Marcos is here. Mommy is here. The child calmed immediately, as if he had recognized true love in her voice. 6 months later, the Madrid Superior Court witnessed a miracle that restored faith in justice. Considering the absolutely overwhelming evidence of Mr. Marcos Blanco's innocence, declared the judge with a solemn voice, this court orders the immediate return of the minor to his biological father. Marcos burst into tears of pure joy. Lucas, Daddy is here, my love. The child, now 9 months old, laughed with the most beautiful music in the world and extended his little arms toward his father. Additionally, continued the judge with a smile, this court officially approves the adoption request presented by Mrs. Valentina Ruiz. Valentina trembled with emotion so intense she could barely breathe. That means Lucas will officially have 2 parents who love him more than their own lives. 1 year later, in the gardens of Valentina's spectacular villa in Marbella, the most emotional wedding the Costa del Sol had ever seen was celebrated. Marcos and Valentina had fallen deeply in love while caring for Lucas together, discovering that true love can be born from the ashes of pain. Do you promise to love this child as if he had come from your own womb? Asked the priest to Valentina. I promise, she responded with tears of happiness running down her cheeks. I promise, Miguel, who watches us from heaven and has guided us here. Lucas, now 1.5 years old, walked wobbling among the guests with the clumsy grace of small children. He had taken his first steps in that same villa, calling Mama and Papa with the same purry joy. That night, on the terrace with a panoramic view of the Mediterranean, Marcos embraced Valentina under a starry sky. Do you really believe Miguel is our guardian angel? He asked with a voice full of wonder. I'm absolutely certain, whispered Valentina. He guided us to each other through pain to create something beautiful. It all began when you asked me for my leftovers in that restaurant, and now we have everything we always dreamed of, but never believed possible. Lucas slept peacefully in his golden crib, surrounded by the unconditional love of 2 people whom destiny had united to heal their wounds. Ricardo served 5 years in prison, but he had lost the most valuable thing in the world, a family's love. Love had triumphed over greed, generosity had defeated evil, and hope had resurrected from the ashes of desperation. And from somewhere among the stars, a 3-year-old boy named Miguel smiled, eternally happy to have brought together 3 broken hearts to create one new and perfect one. If this story has touched the deepest part of our hearts, if we believe that every child deserves unconditional love and every parent deserves a second chance in life, let's leave a heart down below. We want to hear your most intimate stories. Have you ever helped a complete stranger without expecting anything in return? Do you believe that our deceased loved ones can guide us from beyond? What has been the most beautiful and selfless gesture you have received in your life? If this story has moved you to tears if you believe that true love can change the world, subscribe so you don't miss stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Share with whoever needs a dose of hope in their life. Comment, "Miracle of Love," if you also believe in the transformative power of generosity. Let's always remember, sometimes a small gesture of kindness can change 3 lives forever. See you in the next video with another story that will prove that miracles still exist in our world. We love you deeply, souls who still believe in the power of love.